We love Zencaster because it allows us to record the audio for our podcast and create the video segments we use for our weekly Sister Scoop episodes. Zencaster has helped us make content capture simple.
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests, and feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable.
If you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations.
Just go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code SistersAssembled, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Katie and I are always hungry, and one snack we both love is beef jerky. That's why we're so excited to tell you about one of our favorite jerky brands, Matt Hat Jerky.
Matt Hat's delicious taste makes it a great snack, and the variety of flavors, including original, black truffle, and my personal favorite, roasted garlic, means there's a flavor for everyone. Plus, it's local to the area where we grew up in, which we just love.
Use the link in the show notes below to get some Matt Hat Jerky for yourself, and make sure to use our coupon code SistersAssembled for 10% off. Hello and welcome to Sisters Assembled, your home for all things MCU. And it's a big weekend in the MCU this week because it's our first theatrical release of 2025, coming in the form of Captain America: Brave New World, with Sam Wilson's first official outing in theaters as the lead character of Captain America. And we have a lot to say. Before we dive into our reactions, did just want to flag that next week we are going to focus on the Hulk of it all. Everything related to characters around the Hulk, Red Hulk, Leader, the whole nine, that's going to be in next week's episode. So we're going to breeze over that in today's episode just so that we can focus on raw reactions and some of the other many plot lines that were in this film. So with that little aside done, I'm going to turn over to Kate. I don't even know how she felt about this film, so I'm hearing with you guys. Let's get started.
There are very few times that I enjoy going first, only because I don't know what to say. This is not going to be one of those times, because I have a lot to say. And I'm going to start with, this movie's a 50-50 for me. It's a toss-up. And I'm going to also follow that up by just saying, almost with an asterisk, it is not Anthony Mackie's fault. He did his part. It is not Harrison Ford's fault. He did his part. It's actually, let's just say it's literally none of the actors' faults.
It's extremely well acted.
It is.
Period.
It is. It is entirely the plot's fault. And, I have so much to say. I don't know how to get the words out all at once to kind of say it. But unfortunately, the concern of too much going on, as we were talking about in the predictions, did happen, but in a way I didn't expect it to, in which case, I said it to my friend. I said, at the end of the day, they skimmed a really good plot. They were right up against it. And they just never really quite got there. And they just had 9 million things going on instead. And that was what happened in this movie. And I think my biggest complaint, and I'm not going to shut up about it probably this entire episode, is would you just give Anthony Mackie his own movie for once in his life? I mean, I had the fear already with the whole Red Hulk thing, and I said it in our predictions. I was like, I'm a little worried. I mean, you're out here. We talked about the Hulk storyline versus the Captain America storyline. We talked about that. We spent an entire section of the predictions talking about that. And unfortunately, you called it Captain America: Brave New World, and yet somehow he was a side character to the entire plot the whole time. It was him trying to figure out the plot of the sequel to The Incredible Hulk. What?
That last part, just underline it, circle it, highlight it, then copy it 50 more times. Yes, that is such a good way to put it, that he was a side character in the sequel to The Incredible Hulk. First, that tone was set by, one, starting the film with Harrison Ford's election night speech All right, so you've already started the film with not the title character. That's not an immediate no-go because we've started a few Marvel films like that. We started Thor Love and Thunder, and I don't know why this is the example I've chosen,
Yeah, I was
but
going
we
to say because that's the one I thought of, but then I was like, maybe that doesn't really bode well.
yeah, okay, but at least he wasn't like a side character in his own film. So it's like different problems.
True. Although, wasn't he kind of a side character in his own film because Jane was like out kicking butt and it was really about Jane and her journey and like the dying.
But like she wasn't that beginning scene. That beginning scene was gore.
True.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is like that was not, it was an interesting choice, especially when you view it in the lens of the full film, but it was not an immediate red flag to me. However, then you start going into the news segment that was the VO of the beginning few shots after the election night speech, and it's all about, oh, well, this is Thaddeus Ross's history and the Battle of Harlem and the abomination and how he put that man behind bars. And I was like, we just got a plot synopsis of the Incredible Hulk. And then to your point, the entire film was the relationship between the leader and the Red Hulk / Thaddeus Ross. That is what that was. And Sam, to your point, was either playing defense or offense to that plot line the entire film. Moving backwards to what you said is your first point about there being too much in the plot. I actually feel like for having that much in the plot, they were able to integrate them pretty well. Do I think it would have been a better movie if they had maybe pulled a few elements out and focused on Sam? Yes, yeah, it would.
You know, your title character, yes.
Yeah, but I will say, like, for having that much in it, the fact that Sidewinder was working for the leader, who was really up against the Red Hulk, who ended up kind of being the main baddie at the end. Like, at the end of the day, Thunderbolt Ross is low key, or the past Thunderbolt Ross is low key the villain of this film. His own past comes back to bite him in the tuchus and bite Sam. So I do think they did a good job of kind of interweaving. So it didn't feel like there were so many wild plots. It all really did revolve around that Red Hulk leader plot. And so that I will give them kudos for making all of that relatively work seamlessly.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said it's a 50-50 thing because there was a lot going on. And I do think it still hindered the film as a whole, but it worked enough that you could watch the movie. Like, I think it wasn't so much going on that you just sat there and you were like, I never want to watch this movie again. I would watch it again. Would I pick it if we were given Marvel, like a Marvel night, and I was told to pick a Marvel film to watch? And I wasn't, let's narrow this down. And we weren't allowed to pick phases 1 through 3.
Yeah, because those 20-something movies immediately come first with the exception of like 2.
Well, and also we all know which one I'm picking. So
Right.
it's like, that would be stupid. I'm not going to even say that. But yeah. But if I had to pick from phases 4 and 5, and then are we not technically in 6?
I don't know. I
think we're
know.
technically in 6. I feel like the friend. Oh no! What Eyes of Wakanda is supposed to be the first of 6.
I don't know.
Whatever phase we're even in at this point. If you asked me to pick from the current phases, no, this wouldn't be the one I chose.
No,
it wouldn't even make the top 5 probably. And I think it is just because when you have so much going on, no matter how well you try to tell a story, it makes the movie watchable. It doesn't make it enjoyable. And I think that was my issue. I think you also brought in, and I know this was a contested character, and we don't need to go too in depth about this character, but unofficially, they brought in Sabra. Obviously, I don't think we ever had her named Sabra, but that's Ruth. That was the ex-Black Widow. I hated that. I liked the actress. I think she did well in the role. I thought it was random. And then you just had like this security person who, like, high up security person who now was an ex-Black Widow, and I just was like, what are we doing? Like, what is happening here? That seemed like a weird side plot that she came out of nowhere for. I just think you also tried to replicate too much from the past Captain Americas. I love Steve Rogers. I love Chris Evans. Anthony Mackie can make his own name. And is that not the whole point? Like, that was what his driving force was in this movie, and yet Marvel themselves couldn't do it for him. There were a lot of callbacks in just the way scenes were set up to Steve Rogers. I probably got at least 4 that I was like, that is a direct scene from this movie with Steve. This is a direct scene from that movie with Steve. Like, it just was redone.
The hospital scene with Nick Fury from
The
Winter
hospital
Soldier
scene We had the one where the close up of Sam's hand with, I think, the Hulk was in the background, is the exact scene from Endgame with Steve's hand, and then you have Thanos across from him. You had the scene when he was fighting that big guy at the beginning when he takes the helmet off is reminiscent of the stealth suit moment at the beginning of Winter Soldier. Like,
Well, that whole setup, the way that they started with that clandestine mission and then moved into the actual plot, like that whole thing was entirely Winter Soldier coded.
well, and that's just the how it was laid out. But I mean, when you have literal shots, like anything from the Winter Soldier, I mean, I've probably seen that movie a solid like 50 to 60 times. I will not lie to y'all. I could pull it out. And even moments with Ruth, which is why I think I was getting bothered by it, are direct things that Natasha had done. Like I sat there and I was like, listen, I don't need this Captain America to have a Black Widow equivalent. Bucky already's got Yelena and the Thunderbolts. Like, we've already gotten some sort of super soldier Black Widow combination coming up in the Thunderbolts. I didn't need you to introduce me to another random one. I had no tie to that. I just I think that was so aggravating to me because I know the feeling was to try and keep as much of Captain America as possible because it's still a mantle. You still want it to be a Cap movie, which was so ironic because it just wasn't. But I don't need you to steal scenes from Chris Evans' Captain America to make Anthony Mackie's Captain America any more legit. He can be his own. He flies, for God's sake. Like, that in itself, he had so many cool flying scenes that I was like, you don't need to steal from past work and recreate it for me to get that this is Captain America.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they threw the kitchen sink at this film because they weren't sure. And I don't think this is necessarily related to even the change in owner of the mantle. I think it reflects the challenges that Marvel is having overall. I think it is the parallel to having RDJ come back because they are so lost right now creatively as a studio, and it pains me to say this. Katie knows. Like, this is hard to say, but I think it needs to be said. Like, they're having such consistent struggles right now that they are trying to go back to what works. And unfortunately, instead of, analyzing what about the story made it work, right? What about the way that they were able to make us feel about these characters and the work that went into writing consistent storylines for characters across multiple movies, having them even do just small appearances where they were meeting other characters, where they were only in for a minute or two. I'm looking at Sam's appearance in Age of Ultron just to remember, hey, I'm Sam Wilson and I'm here and I'm a relevant character. I may not be in this film, but I am an important character, and then we see where he goes. But we are not having these touch points with the characters, and I think, unfortunately, instead of focusing on character development, and this is not necessarily related to Sam, but overall in the universe, instead of relying on the characters, which are the backbones of these stories, the people that we are relating to, they're instead saying, oh, let's bring back the actor. That's easy. Let's bring back the shot. That's easy. Let's bring back certain pieces of the plot. That's easy. It's not actually getting to the root of the problem. The other thing I want to say about this film that I forgot to say in my initial reactions that I just remembered what it was what the heck was the climax of this film?
Oh my
Because
God.
it felt like the Tiamat battle should have been it. Then they ended the film with him fighting the Hulk. And I just feel like I finished the film and I was like, but what did I just watch? And it just felt so messy. And that was a problem for me. I was like, literally, what was the climax? What was the big battle? The Hulk? Because that's the Red Hulk? Because that's not what I wanted.
Okay, let me get to that, but let me answer what you had been saying before about the characters. I can tell you we're going to have the same discussion with Bucky because the other big glaring thing for me during this was, I'll be honest guys, I didn't rewatch The Falcon and Winter Soldier. Quite frankly, I am fighting for my life to get through the Defenders universe before Daredevil 4 comes out, or Born Again, but y'all know what I mean. Like,
I told
you
you were moving too slow.
Dude, I'm on the Punisher. Like, I'm fine, but like, I'm not into some of these as much as I am into others. Like, Iron Fist took like 2 weeks off my life. Like, I could not. Meanwhile, I watched the first season of Luke Cage in literally 2 days. Like, it
Luke
just
Cage is
depends.
so good.
It was, but then Iron Fist happened, and I was like, "Oh my god,
I
what is
didn't hate the first
happening?"
season. You think the first season's bad? I had to take a 3-month break from the second season.
Well, I've accepted now that I finished the Defenders crossover that I was like, worst comes to worst, I could just skip to Daredevil season 3 at this point.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
As long as you get Daredevil 3 and Punisher 2 in, you're fine.
Oh, I'm never gonna get Punisher 2 in, but I'm in Punisher now. Anyway, this is not the important part, but because I'm fighting for my life in that area, I was like, I simply just cannot put aside time to also watch The Falcon and Winter Soldier again. But I could tell you just off of knowing what I remember, how do you want to explain to me how these characters are getting where they're getting? I don't know how Sam's Captain America went from that amazing speech he gave after the battle that they had with the hand people who I don't remember, or the storm. I don't even know who they are. I don't. The stormtroopers. I knew that wasn't right, but that was
Harrison
coming out of
Ford,
my mouth.
yes, wrong franchise though.
No, I don't even remember what they're called, but like the weird extra super soldiers that like ended up getting made, whoever they were, and the main baddies after that whole battle, and he has that great speech. I'm like, that's cool. I don't know how you got to like being where you got in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't understand this. I'm not sure how we got there. And I know I'm going to have the exact same complaint about Bucky unless it's explained of how he went from smiling with Sarah on the boat and flirting with Sam's sister and all this crap to now apparently being a politician, which we will get to in a moment. But I don't know. Like, and this is part of the problem, I think, with these gaps too, is let's not forget, guys, we had, what was it? 2014 was Winter Soldier, 2015 Age of Ultron, 2016 Civil War. Cap was in all three of those.
Mm-hmm.
His first movie was what, 2010, 2011? I think it was 2011.
Mm-hmm.
There were very little gaps. I mean, Chris Evans was essentially going to a press tour and then turning around and filming for whatever the next movie was.
Well, yeah, because The Avengers was in 2012. He was literally 2011,
Well, exactly.
2012, 2014,
He was
15,
booked
16,
and busy.
18,
Yes.
19. Yeah.
Yes. He if he was not actively at a premiere, he was literally filming the next movie.
Yeah.
How that man made any other movies in that time frame, I don't really know. But I think the issue is when you don't have these even just small crossovers in any way, you're not filling in the gaps with these characters. So, yes, a show that came out 4 years ago, I'm trying to figure out where these characters went to and how we got here, because I don't know if it's been 4 years in this universe, but it's been 4 years in ours. And I am not sure where to fill in the gaps from. I don't know. So I think that in itself is part of the issues with the characters. Then he brought up the whole, like, where was the climax? And I couldn't really tell you. I knew they were going to have the Hulk battle or the Red Hulk battle be the climax, because that was the entire marketing, like, that was the plan, right? That was everything they put into it, was the battle with Red Hulk.
See, that was a moment when I was really hoping that they were using the trailers to mislead, because I was like, that's not a Captain America film, in the sense that, like, this is essentially what they did with Civil War, that they made Cap's film everybody else's film.
Yes.
So going back to exactly what you said at the very beginning, and one of your first points, when are they gonna let Sam headline his own film? I don't care if he has Joaquin. That's cool. Cap always had Sam, or he had Bucky, or he had Natasha. He always had a buddy. Caps love their buddy system. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But it's not just Joaquin as the Falcon as his buddy anymore. It's now the Red Hulk and the leader and a Black Widow on top of it all, and so many other elements that it's like, okay, this isn't even a Captain America film. You tossed in a character in Sidewinder who could have been his own leader of a film in terms of antagonists, and maybe he will, because we all know that we're setting up kind of that, antagonism between him and Sam to maybe move further. But he's also now already beat the guy. So it's kind of like, all right, are we going to get the Serpent Society in a different way? Is he going to partner with the Power Broker? I don't know. But long story short, this didn't feel like a Captain America film, and it needed to. But they threw in the kitchen sink and took away the elements that make a Cap film a Cap film.
I agree with everything you said. I'm going to take a couple steps back because I still have to answer some of your other points, and then you went off on some more, which
Sorry.
they're all valid.
So many thoughts.
They're all valid. But I think talking about the whole climax thing, coming back to that, I see the hope of them not doing it. I think when you put your entire marketing budget to it being, I mean, for God's sake, the posters. Every single one of the posters has the Red Hulk in it. Granted, now maybe some of us, maybe we were foolish and naive, and we should have just sat there and been like, well, if that's going to be the fact, then we know this is not just a Captain America movie. Like, maybe I shouldn't have been so hopeful that they were going to just have him in there, but it was going to be still Sam's movie. Like, that was being naive. That's on me, I guess. Like, they told me this was a shared movie from the start. But I think my issue was I was like, okay, fine. If we're gonna make this be the climax, why did it last like a 0.5 seconds? And also, like, I'm sorry, but I hate the storyline of we can all talk down the Hulk. I want to die when that storyline comes out. I mean, I made the joke of the sun's getting real low. I was waiting
There
for
was a
it.
minute I honestly thought he was gonna say that.
If he did. And now, like, listen, we made the joke already in Ragnarok. We made the joke.
Yeah.
When he sat there, he goes, sun's getting real low. Sun's getting real low, buddy. Like, and it worked in that movie because we also know Ragnarok is one of the best movies that's ever been made.
Yes.
But that was part of the joke. That was the point, because that was how they were making fun of all the times that they did that. While he didn't inherently use the words, the whole like, you and Betty came here when and you guys go for, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. This is his first transformation as the Red Hulk, in which he didn't even know he was essentially a Hulk. He definitely had some hints after the whole little boat debacle, but he didn't know he was going to turn into that. So this man who has had so much anger, and okay, he's trying to overturn a new leaf, and I'm here for it, but at the end of the day, you could tell that's a struggle for him. And then they're like, yep, after we're going to bat each other around, Sam's going to manage to talk him down. And that's how we end this story. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, what? We hit the climax for about maybe 2 minutes. And then we went right into resolution. And I was like, this isn't even okay. And I know you kind of went on to another topic with Sidewinder, and I want to hit that, but I think the more prevalent topic for me then, and one I think I'm shocked actually you didn't get to before me, was then we skip some time. I don't know how much, couldn't be that much, but we definitely skip enough time. Ross is already not president, and now we have to ask the question of who is president? And what does this mean? What are the implications?
If it turns out to be Ritson, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought, maybe this is now Ritson. I don't know.
I do want to point something out that is related to this conversation, but my ears perked up like a dog who hears the tree bag opening when the leader said, and I quote, "He kept me here for 16 years." That is a very specific amount of time, especially when you do the math and you think, wow, what's 16 plus 2008 when the Battle of Harlem happened? 2024.
Yeah.
Which means that election happened in 2024. And then if you say 5 months later and he talks about his first 100 days, which ends at around March, that puts us in March 2025, if I am mathing correctly.
So weirdly, we are exactly on time almost.
Literally 6 weeks to the, like, depending on where in March. Well, 100 days is end of March. So, like, yeah, we're like there. So we're caught up. But if that's the case, I hate to say it, I think you're right. I think Ritson is the next president, and they released that sucker, like, talking about Secret Invasion. They released that.
That sucker.
Not Ritson. I just want to clarify that really quick. They released that so out of order that his predecessor hadn't even been elected president yet. And now he is president.
I mean, listen, what did I say? I said it during the predictions. I don't see how you open such a can of worms and then you're like, never mind, we're just going to ignore it for all of time. Because the problem is, this wasn't like an end credit scene that they ignore. Hello, Mordo. It was an entire show.
Yeah.
You can't, I mean, no matter how good or bad it did, you can't ignore it at all, like, completely. And so I'm not shocked, but I was shocked that they didn't. I was hoping that they would mention it, because I was like, listen, honestly, if you just kind of straight up say like Ritson is president or something, cool, just confirm it for me. And then I'm like, I know slightly where this timeline goes.
Yeah.
I was annoyed they didn't. But like I said, I was so intrigued on how quickly that power vacuum opened, because I did say to you, I said, I have a feeling they're not going to do well with a Red Hulk being president.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think it was just that. I mean, Buddy kind of demolished the White House. Like, there were definitely some issues.
He had no chill. He tried to take out the Washington Monument. He took out his own Secret Service. I mean,
Yeah.
like, Buddy did not even like chill out as the Red Hulk. He was
No.
like, I'm gonna kill everybody in sight. And do it on national television, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was like, I think that made the most sense. And I'm in the weirdest of ways, because it is nice to be right about some things over time. I'm glad I was right about it, but it does open that question now of like, I guess Secret Invasion could now take place after this movie. But then also inherently, I think it's going to be interesting to see where the Thunderbolts could take place now in comparison to this. I'm going to assume after, for reasons we'll get to in a second. But I think we're accidentally going to get a timeline piece by little piece. And you know what? I'll take it. But I want to get into Sidewinder, because you were right. And now let's recall, guys, and this was the
I just
first
want
thought
to
I
pause
had.
for a second. Can you say that again? Say that I was right again.
What did I even say? You were right?
Yeah. Literally, it's on tape, girl. You were like, I just want to go to Sidewinder because you were right. So I just want you to play that back, roll it back, and say it one more time, just in case the audience missed it.
No, because I didn't remember saying it.
I'm gonna edit that little sentence into its own MP3 and just play it on a loop and then send
Yeah,
it to you.
because you're like never right, so you need to hear it multiple times when you are.
That is so untrue. But I will say the whole film, when I was like talking about the whole film, obviously the leader was like the mastermind. And I just kept going, I was so right. Like I was sitting there and I was like, I can't wait to rub this in.
Let's talk about that, because that was arguably the most annoying part. And I do want to remind all the listeners in this exact moment, Giancarlo Esposito was added to this film way late.
Yeah, like he wasn't even in this film originally.
Yes, as in like they had been doing tests to test audiences, and because it didn't perform well, they made the edit to add him. Now, did that fix a thing? No. Actually, it made it worse, because I feel like he was wasted. I feel like there was no point. He acted as a puppet to the leader, which, okay, fine. But I mean, even in the predictions, I said, why would you not save the leader? Well, they are saving the leader, apparently, for something in the future, which we'll spend our whole next episode talking about. We're not going to go too in depth on that, because there's a lot we can talk about there. But I said, why can't we just save the leader and focus on Sidewinder? Why can't we do that? And instead, Sidewinder was in this film for maybe 2 minutes. Maybe, if we're that lucky. Maybe three. That was the most disappointing part, because I also have to say, when you in retrospect look at it and you're like, you brought a whole other character in thinking you were going to fix the film. How did 3 minutes of his screen time fix the film in any way, shape, or form?
Well, and not to mention, it's a twofold. You didn't just bring in any character. You brought in Sidewinder,
Yeah.
the leader of the Serpent Society, to make him, to your point, a puppet to the leader. And now, if we want to use him again, which Giancarlo Esposito has said, see you soon. Like, he's not hiding it. They also, in his final scenes with Sam, they seem to be setting up a, hey, I'm going to kill you. There's more to be said there.
Yeah.
However, Sam already bested him. So really, how much more is there to talk about between Sam and Sidewinder?
Yeah.
And then, on the other half of that, you didn't just bring in any character or any actor to play Sidewinder. You brought in Giancarlo Esposito, one of the best villain actors, if not the best villain actor of all time,
Yes.
to play a minor role in this film to ruin a character, potentially, for any future meaningful, like more meaningful roles.
Yes.
It's a sin. It is a sin what they did.
Well, and again, I guess I'm really stuck on the fact that they brought him in after the fact, and his character did nothing to change it.
No, it could have been any unnamed person.
Yes, and I think with that, it also, listen, cool, you're trying to set some stepping stones for whatever the next Cap is. I get it. You wasted this movie, though. Why were we not doing more here? I mean, I think I compared the Serpent Society, like Sam's to the Serpent Society is Steve's Hydra. I think I made that comparison in the predictions, and I was like, that's the ideal way to do it. I mean, Steve spent 2 movies trying to take down Hydra. Why didn't we like, you wanna talk about formula and you wanna talk about things they tried to replicate, that was something worth replicating.
Agreed.
You could still tell a very different story because the Serpent Society isn't Hydra. You could still have told a very different story. But I think as soon as he took down Sidewinder, I think the movie ended.
Yes.
If I'm being honest, because it stopped being Cap's movie and it turned into a Hulk movie. And that was the end. That to me ended the movie because I honestly was sitting there and I was like, there is no way. There is no way that you're going to tell me that he got him arrested right now. And this is the end of this. And it was. And I think that just was so very disappointing to me. And it just, like I said, to me, that marked the end of the movie. And that was maybe a total of like 30 minutes in.
Yeah. It was definitely, that was a choice that I would not have made had I produced the film.
No, and I also have to say another glaring thing that annoyed the crap out of me within the first couple minutes. Not even. It's hard when you're watching a movie to actually know how far into it, but it felt very early into the movie. The whole like thing with Isaiah Bradley and like the mind thing with the music. Okay, guys, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to put it in retrospect. Obviously, my first thought was mind control, Bucky. It's like a trigger. I was thinking, like, that was my first thought process, right? Obviously, I'm in love with Bucky Barnes, and I spend all my time thinking about him. Like, I get it. But to put it in retrospect, Sam is Bucky's current best friend. So the fact that his first thought was not in relation to it, especially when Isaiah, I actually think Sam says, well, I talked to Isaiah and he like doesn't remember. He only remembers up to this point and this point. And then I think he makes a comment about like, it seemed like he wasn't in control. And I was like, oh my God.
And
Like,
it takes him another like 30 minutes of the film until he
yes.
says to Joaquin, hey, can we talk about maybe thinking about mind control? Because I have a friend who had to deal with something like that.
As soon I was like, I need to leave. Like, I really sat there and I was like, I can't believe for any part of this that he is not coming to that conclusion any quicker by the sheer fact that he is best buds with like the king of mind control. And I just was like, dude. And it just maybe that set the scene. Maybe that was where it kind of just started for me, where I was just like, okay, we're going to take a very intelligent character and have him play dumb for weird reasons for the plot. And that's going to annoy me because that just kept the plot going. And I was like, we could have skimmed some things out if we would have just, like, if my best friend was the poster child for mind control, I think I also would have started putting some hints together that was like, oh, some of the things this man is telling me about his lack of knowledge of how he got from here to here and like whatever, and how he didn't seem to like, I mean, we all saw Isaiah. His eyes glassed right over. He went into like soldier mode. Like, I was like, dude, come on. Like, that annoyed me. That was like one of those moments that I was just like, okay. Again, we're going to take a very intelligent character and dumb him down to keep the plot going for longer and make the chase of it all, if you will, last longer. And I was like, that's stupid. That's annoying. Your audience isn't dumb. So that annoyed the crap out of me. I know that's stupid, but that was just one of those moments where I was like, guys.
No, it is a good point. I do want to quickly talk about Isaiah though, because he was such an interesting character in this film. Like when he
had
was
me in tears. I won't lie.
Yes, I was just about to say, when he was being arrested and he was telling Sam, like, I cannot go back there. And then even when Sam goes to see him in the prison and he's like visibly shaking and he's like having a true trauma response to things he was probably only just starting to really work through. I mean, I was like, that was the only time in the entire film that I even got close to tears. And I was like, that actor, I mean, he truly moved me. Isaiah was like the unsung hero of this whole film in terms of just like being so emotional. I was like, and Anthony Mackie played off of him so well. Like,
yes,
I think I always think of Sam as this like really fun and bubbly guy, and he is sometimes, but the way that you could see the guilt and the way that you could see how much Isaiah means to him and seeing him that way and how it affected Sam and how Mackie played that so well. Those scenes were utterly heartbreaking, and those two men blew that out of the water. That was so well done, well acted, and honestly well written. Like, not all of this film was. We've had our qualms, but those two scenes were incredibly poignant and well written.
I agree. I will admit I actively shed the tear, but my eyes filled with tears
Yeah.
watching him get arrested because I think, and whatever, obviously we put our own feelings onto different characters, but I think because one of my favorite, if not even my favorite character out of all of Marvel is Bucky. And so I think knowing all the pain that mind control in general and just somebody hijacking your mind essentially and making you do things that you don't like you have to answer to at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And I think we saw so much of that story with Bucky over his time in Marvel and like when he needed to be pardoned and stuff like that because, he is technically a criminal, but he's never really done it. He is when he's conscious of himself has never actually committed the crimes. So I think knowing the pain that has brought other characters and then seeing it put on Isaiah so bluntly because this has never happened to him before either just really I think shook me a new one. I definitely was very sad during those scenes and I do think it was just so powerful and I'm glad that they brought I obviously we knew Isaiah was in it but I'm glad they brought Isaiah back in a way that shows that Sam really respects him
Mhm.
and they've created a really hopefully from this perspective long lasting relationship. Like I do think you could have moved away from Isaiah Bradley and never brought him up again because we could have just used him for the plot device he needed to be in The Falcon and Winter Soldier. And then you also introduced his grandson, which is hopefully going to be a future young Avenger. And then we never saw him again. So I do have to also just commend the fact of bringing him back and having him play the integral role of really getting the ball rolling here. I think that was very smart. And I also think, like I said, his connection with Sam is just, it's very touching. And I think it really brings you down to earth during all of this other hoopla, if you will. That these are these two men who have had two very different experiences in life, but they are helping each other get through their other pieces, you know?
Totally. And I think, it's not lost on probably anybody that this film, in so many ways, was about legacy, right? Ross is trying to cement his legacy, and that doesn't really go the way that he wants, thanks to the leader. And Sam is trying to define what his time as Captain America will mean for his legacy and how he chooses to look at Steve's legacy and make it his own. And then you have Isaiah, who represents the not so shiny side of what happens in the US government and in war. Because Captain America was this shining example in the 40s of science and progress, and he stood for, all of these ideals. And then you have back here, hidden off to the side, they were doing these experiments on these other guys, and Isaiah was actually successful. He is incredibly strong, even in his advanced age. He's stronger than half these guys in their 20s and 30s, and they spent 30 years experimenting on him. So now you have a man who represents the mantle and then a man who was hidden away. And they even call him in the film the forgotten Captain America. And I think it's so interesting, that dichotomy as well, and I'm glad that they were able to expand upon that even in subtle ways in this film and not do exactly what happened in the MCU and brush the character aside. No, they made him or gave him a place of prominence, and I think that was actually really kind of beautiful and almost like a full circle moment where it's like, oh, okay, we're going to bring this character and give this character opportunities to shine, even though, his quote unquote time has passed because he was never selected as Captain America, if you will.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I think it was a really nice touch in general. Like I said, to even just have this character there, but then to tell the story between the two of them. You talked about the dichotomy, and I fully agree. I think it's also the only way I personally feel like they continued the plot from the Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I go back to that speech he had that Sam had at the very end of the show when he was out with the press and he was giving his first official speech and the first time he was fully Captain America in the whole garb and everything. And I think the relationship with Isaiah and what Isaiah stands for versus what he stands for is the only part of that show that I think genuinely translated into this. And I think it was done very well. So I do give props for that. I really, really enjoyed it. But I have said his name 17 times and I've not been able to talk about it. So I'm talking
I
about
was
it now.
waiting for it.
Yeah, I Okay, so first off, guys, I've been vocal before about my reaction to when Bucky showed up in the end credit scene in Black Panther. May I tell you, I had a very similar reaction. Okay, I bounced out of my seat very loudly. Like the seat I was in was Rocky. I bounced out of that seat so fast because I kind of felt it. But everybody online was like, Bucky's not going to be in it. It's going to be the first Captain America film. Bucky's not going to be in. And I was like, oh, that's a little crock. But I was like, you know what? And I actually bought it for some odd reason. And so then when he started, when Sam was talking and then they didn't initially show who it was, I was like, do you think? And then as soon as the side profile stepped, I was like, out of my chair, like so fast. And it was so funny because the girl behind me, same reaction. Like her and I were both like edge of our chairs, like Bucky is here, guys. Everything is good. Bucky has made his appearance. So first and foremost, just thank you for that. I needed that. I'm happy to have seen Sebastian Stan grace my screen. I will say that was a very high point of the movie for me. I know I shouldn't just put a cameo as the high point, but it really, really was. I apologize, but it was. But I want to talk about Bucky. I always want to talk about Bucky, but I really want to talk about Bucky because I don't think we'd open this door if we didn't have Thunderbolts coming out in 3 months, but we do. And so now we really need to kind of put some puzzle pieces together. We couldn't figure out Bucky's position in Thunderbolts. We knew he was kind of in the government. Like we were getting those pieces. Clearly he's doing well for himself. If you look at the dishwasher scene, he's got a nice little gig going on there.
I mean, not every apartment has a dishwasher. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, but it also, like, that kitchen looked nice. Like, that being said, though, Bucky's a politician. Now, sorry.
All I need is you like kicking your feet. That is all I need to complete this.
I love Bucky to death and I love his character, but I'm just trying to put together where Marvel said Bucky's future is politics. And that is kind of where I'm stuck right now, is where they were like, yeah, that's it. Bucky, who hates everybody 90% of the time, is going to become a politician because that's where he belongs. And that's actually where I got a little stuck. But I was like, you know what? Sure, we're rising in ranks. We're doing what we got to do, I guess. I don't take the man down from the inside. I don't know what his goal is at this point. But again, where that annoying gap is, because I don't know where he went from flirting with Sam's sister on the boat in Louisiana to being a politician in possibly DC. I mean, he'd be in DC, but I don't know where he's like from.
Probably New York.
I would think, but I don't know. Regardless, how do we get here? How did we get here? And how is this going to affect his character in Thunderbolts?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I mean, I actually am not surprised that they made him a politician because I actually think, and I'm not one to psychoanalyze Bucky because this is clearly your field of expertise, so keep me honest here.
Okay.
But I would think, if you think about Bucky all the way back in the first Avenger, gregarious, energetic, charismatic. He wants an audience, but he's got a good heart, right? This isn't true of all politicians. It's what we would like to think politicians could be as an ideal. When he's in control of himself, though, he has a good heart and he wants to do good things. I also think we've seen he's tired of the fight. We saw it in his end credit scene where he asks, where's the fight? Where's the war? Where do I have to do? He's so weary. He's so tired. And I think if you put those things together, it's actually a sign of his healing, that he has now reached a place where he no longer wants to fight and he's returning to the James Buchanan Barnes that he was before he was enlisted and before all of this traumatic crap happened to him. He's returning to that version of himself who, if none of that had ever happened, or if he'd just come home a veteran of World War II, maybe that's what he would have made if his life had been his own.
I don't disagree. I think, again, though, I talk back to this gap.
Oh, I totally agree. Yes, 100%.
I think the problem for me is this is whiplash. When you have Bucky fall off the train in the first Avenger and then reappear the way he did in the Winter Soldier, that is such a traumatic moment. And that is such, the best word is really like chaotic kind of change. It is just one of those things where you're like, you can pinpoint the moment everything went wrong and how he got there. So while the Winter Soldier is so different, you know the exact moment it all went wrong. On the flip side of this, we've had Bucky, in the nicest of ways, be kind of a mess for, Winter Soldier 2014. If this is 2024, theoretically roughly 10 years in the MCU. And for us, 10 years. That being said, we've only really known Winter Soldier Bucky and remnants of Winter Soldier Bucky. And I think it's great that he's healing. And I think we got that in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. We were getting that. But I think when you go through this gap, it is so funny to me to see him from the Falcon and Winter Soldier, and now he's like this buttoned up politician who like has little speechwriters and all this stuff. Like, I think that's so whiplashy because I'm like, guys, we did not talk about how we got here, because he also didn't really seem to have that urge in the Falcon and Winter Soldier to go in that direction.
2 words, 3 actually, if you count day as a different word. Valentina de Fontaine. This screams Valentina.
Yeah.
The same way that she recruited Yelena to go kill Hawkeye, she looked at Bucky and said, "You've got the face of a politician," and now she's got a politician in her pocket because who do you think is paying for the speech writers? Valentina.
Oh, yeah.
Notice how when she's testifying in whatever government forum she's testifying in that trailer, who's sitting behind her?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's why I know this is going to seamlessly fit us into the Thunderbolts. I just guess I get stuck because we didn't see that. Like, Yelena, we saw.
But I'm saying in the Thunderbolts, we might explore that more. Like,
True.
we have now seen him in his current state, but we're going to get an entire film where we're going to see him be this way, and we might get a little bit of fill in the blanks of, oh, well, you've been working with Valentina for a couple years, and oh, where did Valentina pluck you from? And whatever that looks like,
True.
that could be explored more. You're just getting Bucky dropped in to plant a seed, but I think in the future, we're hopefully, if they write this the way that we're all hoping, we're going to get a little bit of back, because all those characters, we need to know what the heck has been going on. We need to understand, how did they get there?
Yes, but I do have to say, I think there was the detriment of Valentina only seemingly showed up for US Agent. And I think had we had the little droplet that she was kind of having conversations with Bucky, I think even that would have band-aid solution this a little bit. And I would have been like, okay. But I do think it's a little jarring from the current perspective. I also think in Thunderbolts, I don't want to put too much money on it because you have 6 characters you need to juggle, 7 including Valentina. And we only really know how 2 of them, to my knowledge, got involved with her. So we have that going for us. She bought Avengers Tower. That's got to be, there's a lot that needs to be explored. And that's not even the plot. That is not even the plot yet.
I don't think we're necessarily going to go deeply into it, but I do think they're going to be able to add a little bit of color to what we saw.
I hope so. But I'm not going to hold my breath. It's kind of where I'm going with it. Now, am I angry about it? No. I just think it's so funny because from the last iteration to me of Bucky, I cannot imagine this man being a politician.
He's not the grumpy old man anymore.
And you know what? I was Ruth. When Ruth walked into that room, I was her. Like,
I was like, this woman is every person who is attracted to men in this room right now. And I am so proud of her for saying what we're all thinking.
I've never related to a character's lines more than I related to her. And then when Sam Stewart was like, he's 110, she was like, I can make that work. And I was like, I
can work with that.
This is me in this exact moment. I can also make that work. I will live the politician's wife's life. I don't care. We'll do it. Sure.
Give me the pantsuits. I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm totally fine. We'll go to the galas. I'll be happy. I want to go to a gala. We'll have the time of our lives. I don't care. But yeah, and honestly, you could tell me that wasn't scripted between Anthony and Sebastian. I'd believe you. Like, some of that part with the whole speechwriter, I was like, there's no way this is in the script. Like, these two are off the cuff right now. But I loved them bringing Bucky in. I think in the moment of need, it was nice to see it. I also think it was great to see that their friendship is much deeper than I think even in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. I mean, we see it, and then by the end we're like, okay, we're seeing them together, but that was really the end. We finished the show, and then you were like, what, are we gonna see them together again? So to see them be so close, and to see that in Steve's passing, instead of being the awkward 2 friends of the triangle that were like, we weren't really friends and our mutual friend left us, quite literally, they have now come together and they are best friends. And I think that is so wholesome. And I hope that they continue to keep these 2 interacting with each other as time goes on.
When Bucky said, "I love you, man," I almost melted. I was like, this true show of friendship is just beautiful. These 2 men love each other so much, and it's so pure and so wonderful.
I know.
And it just made me so happy. Last thing. This will be the last thing we talk about for this episode. And then, like I said, we'll do the whole Hulk shenanigans next episode. This does have to, the leader's in the scene, but to me, the way I
Oh my
interpreted it,
god, I know where we're going, and I was dreading talking about this part.
I loved it, was the end credit scene when he talks about the multiverse.
Can I tell you first why I don't like it, and then we can go off on it?
Sure.
I'm angry because it didn't feel like it belonged in this movie. And now, don't get me wrong, I understand end credits like set up the most random things sometimes. But I think if you're only going to have one end credit scene, I think it's so weird to have had your Captain America be the one who has this super intelligent scientist being like, yeah, the world, it's coming to an end. You're not going to be able to defend it. I was like, this is weird. These are just not the characters I feel like this, and this is just like not the place I feel like this should have happened. And it just felt like Marvel kind of was like, hey, we should probably mention Secret Wars coming because it's kind of coming. And this is what came from that.
See, I kind of loved it, and here's why. Because if you think about who knows about the multiverse, it's your mystical folks and your space folks, right? They're the only ones who understand truly what's going on. And even some of those people don't really understand it and or flout the rules. I'm looking at you, Stephen Strange, right? So only a certain subset of our people even know that there's stuff out there that we need to be worried about. There's an entire ground level category that has no idea and thinks everything's hunky dory. Like, they don't even understand, like, they get the concept of the universe, but the idea of the multiverse has never even really crossed their minds. And the reason that I love this end credit scene is because you have a highly intelligent individual who is capable of understanding the multiverse and of predicting it because of the gamma radiation, which they talked about a lot. This man is overly brilliant because of what happened to him. He is truly the only person, or one of few, I should say, because there's other brilliant individuals, one of few brilliant individuals who would be able to independently think of or discover the multiverse without being within the mystical or space realms. The reason I love him telling Sam is because you're not just telling Captain America, you're telling the man who's reassembling the Avengers. And at the end of the day, what comes before Secret Wars? Avengers, Secret Wars. So you're going to need the guy who is the leader of the Avengers to be on board. And I actually think it was an unexpected but incredibly interesting way to get a whole subset of characters who were not on board with what the larger overarching storyline was on board with the idea of the multiverse. Because otherwise, they were going to be blindsided.
I hear you, but from that interaction, I don't feel like he's on board because what are you getting from wait until you have to defend against everybody else or defend this world? I think honestly, if I would take this end credit scene and make it my ideal scenario, I don't think it should have been a one-on-one conversation with Sam. I actually would have liked a lot more if the leader was kind of losing his cool a little bit in the raft and was like almost, and maybe I'm pulling from an imagination, but I feel like it's from the Batman when the Joker is kind of having a moment in that end credit scene. But like I would have kind of liked if he was just sitting there laughing and kind of be like, you have no idea what's coming. Like, and like something very subtle, but I just think maybe it was the conversation part of it that just, I don't know. Or maybe I also kind of felt like I was like, this could have just been the end of the movie. I'm not sure it needed to be the end credit. I don't know what it was. It just didn't feel like it fit. And I see your point with like, hey, there's a whole subset of heroes that have no idea what's coming. And I agree. I still don't think Sam knows what's coming. I think now he's like, okay, this guy is spouting some stuff. Sam's got a lot more to worry about still. Like he's still, I'm sure, pretty wrapped up in his day-to-days. I don't think he's going to be the type of hero that feels like he needs to be worrying about whole other worlds and universes. 'Cause that was the other thing. He kept saying worlds, and I was like, are they not universes? Like, I was like, what am I missing here? But regardless, I just don't think that's on his radar. And so I think if we didn't know what was coming, would we have gotten it? It's kind of my question because Sam doesn't know what's coming. We all do. So if we didn't know it was Secret Wars, it was Battle World, it was Incursions and all this other crap, would we have sat here and been like, yes, I understand what he's saying? I don't know. So I don't know if Sam's sitting there like, I really need to be worried about what this guy's saying to me right now.
I totally hear you. I do. I think you make very valid points. I think honestly, where the excitement for me comes from is even though it's maybe not as explicit as I would have liked, this is the first time it really feels like they are acknowledging the multiverse in a non multiversal focused project ever.
Yes, but again, I feel like it was just because they have to. Because we've done the breakdown. We said what's coming up that they're going to talk about the multiverse. We were like, hopefully, Fantastic Four. Like, we already did the breakdown of what was or wasn't going to be included. I just felt, and maybe that was it. Maybe if we boil it all down at the end of the day, it felt forced because Marvel was like, we absolutely need to start mentioning this because we supposedly have this movie coming out in like 2 years or a year. Actually, is Doom not next year?
It is.
Yeah. So supposedly we have the first part of this starting by next year already. Like I feel that's what it felt like though. It was like Marvel was like, crap, we probably should mention this and we don't have a ton of projects that deal with it.
Look, I don't disagree with that part. I think what my point was actually, though, when I was saying that is my standards are now so low that I was excited by this.
Okay, then say that.
I think we're actually feeling the same
Yes.
in that, like, I have gotten to the point where literally something as subtle as this and as small as this, speaking to this ground level type character, is actually exciting to me because otherwise they are doing nothing to move the multiversal plot forward. So I think we're actually saying the same thing, just in different ways.
Just one of us saw it for what it was and got not so excited, and one of us saw it for what it was and was like, I'm gonna allow myself to just be excited about this because it's a crumb.
Yeah, like I will honestly, like, I've not been eating well, clearly, on the multiversal storyline. Y'all know how I feel about it. And then they're not even doing it well. But then I was like, at this point, I'm so hungry, I will take all your crumbs. Like, I don't even care anymore, you know?
Yeah, I just think for me it was very awkward. And so I think then the other part of it was again, you didn't put in a second end credit, which fine. We've had movies that don't have to. But I think that when you didn't have a second one that like furthered anything from what we really saw in the movie, that was kind of aggravating because I was like, also, I would have loved to see the leader, like, I don't know, give a hint on how he's going to escape. He's sitting in the raft with Red Hulk. Like, I'd love to have seen that get used as an end credit and then like another end credit be a random hint at the multiverse or something. I don't know. I just feel like there was so much and again, maybe this just comes down to the fact that this movie had like every arm and leg imaginable in it, but like when you have so much happening in a movie, I just feel like you need to have an end credit scene that at least sets something up from the rest of the movie. And because it had so many loose ends still, every character is still on the board. There's not a single character not on the board from this movie. And so I feel like when that happens, but then to be like, oh, we really need to talk about like the bigger saga here. It just is like, oh, these are just like empty words. Like, I don't like this.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been if they'd done a better job of seeding this throughout the last phase and 3/4. But
And that's very true. Yeah. That's extremely true.
yeah. All right. Well, on that note, these are our initial reactions to Captain America Brave New World. Like I've said a few times, we're going to come back with some Hulk focused reactions, both related to the leader and Red Hulk, next week in what's probably going to be a shorter episode, though those two characters did steal Cap's thunder a little bit, which was unfortunate. But if you're looking forward to that episode, you can follow on your podcast platform of choice. Make sure you're checking out the website. We have the calendar on there so you can kind of see what we're looking at for the next couple of months. And if you're enjoying the show and would like to support us in any way, you can check out our Buy Me a Coffee, which is linked below.
You guys can also give us a follow on all of our socials. They are also in the show notes, so go check us out. We are very active on them right now as we are covering Captain America Brave New World and also your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. So go check those out. And as Taylor said, we are doing episode-wise a whole episode on the leader, Red Hulk, really the whole Hulk of it all. That's probably going to be the episode. Captain America Brave New World, the whole Hulk of it all. That's actually a great episode title. Taylor, write that down.
I'm taking notes.
Great, perfect. Either way, that will be our episode next week, but also be tuning in. We are covering on all of our socials the finale of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So make sure you guys are also checking those out on our Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok. They all have our reactions to those episodes. So stay tuned. We hope you guys are enjoying that show. And we hope, even though we didn't love this movie, we still enjoyed it. And we hope you guys did too. It's still a Marvel movie. We still love going out to them. So hopefully you guys had some fun at least watching the movie. We still had fun, so we'll take it. But we will see you guys next week for the Hulk of it all. Marvel just blew your mind, so let's talk about it.